The Lakers secured the number 3 seed in the Western Conference. Their first-round opponent is Minnesota. Game 1 of their best-of-7 series is Saturday at Crypto.com. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, this is Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and for over 20 years, Parkside Economic Development Corporation has served Leimert Park and surrounding communities, empowering tomorrow's leaders and changing lives. Parkside EDC has awarded over $400,000 in college scholarships while sharing economic principles of the Big Five of money with students and their families. Parkside EDC partners with organizations like the Brotherhood Crusade to assure our youth have the financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards. Will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
In this hour of Tavis, Smiley, a conversation with Grammy-nominated composer, curator, and activist Carlos Simon about his transcendent musical experience merging gospel and classical traditions, spoken word, and even visual art. Carlos Simon is soon to perform the world premiere of his L.A. Phil-commissioned Good News Mass with the Los Angeles Philharmonic and the maestro, Gustavo Dudamel, soon to leave L.A. And go to New York. We're going to miss Dudamel here in L.A., but we can always go to New York to check him out. So he's catching Dudamel as he is winding up his tenure here in Los Angeles. As you know, every one of our guests in studio, and by the way, Carlos Simon is in studio if you want to turn us on and watch. We always give them the choice for their walk-on music, and you would expect this of a composer. So what are we listening to, and why did you choose it as your walk-on?
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
My honor to have you, sir.
Yeah. Well, this is from a movement of a larger piece called a Tales Folklore Symphony. This is the first movement. It's called Mother Box Connection. And I got the inspiration from, sort of looking at comic books. I've never really seen black people in comic books. And so I wanted to take this notion of there's a comic book author named Black Kirby, and they take all these different types of main characters in which you find in comic books, and they they make them black, and so that you see black heroes. And so this particular movement is based on a computer that knows everything about blackness. And so you hear the very fast rhythms, and it's like it's all knowing, and it's actually the entity is female. So it's like it's like very, very intelligent, different type of thing. So I wanted to embed that into the orchestra, and so create this web of fast moving rhythms and stuff.
Let's listen to a little bit more. Miles Lowe. I'm feeling like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption. Y'all recall that scene where he just he plays some classical music? some opera, as a matter of fact. And everybody on the yard is just forced to listen. And they pause because they've never heard anything quite like what they're hearing. So I want to just play a little bit more of that. It's not often that we get a chance on this program to hear this kind of symphonic brilliance, and so why not just play a little bit of it for you. Our guest again in this hour, for the hour, is a Grammy-nominated composer, curator, and activist Carlos Simon. We're going to talk in a moment about his L.A. Field Commission piece, Good News Mass, which he is about to world premiere here in L.A. Just days from now, literally. But again, I'm honored to have him in studio. Let me just start some broad themes, Carlos, and we'll narrow as we move through this hour. How did this become your lane, composition?
Composition. Well, I grew up in the black church.
Yeah.
My dad's a preacher. My grandfather's a preacher. Great-grandfather's a preacher. Black Pentecostal preachers, to be specific.
There you go.
And so,
I know something about that.
I know you do.
Yeah.
I know you. Yeah. But music has such plays an important role in the church.
Mm-hmm.
It's very spontaneous, very charismatic worship. Of course, parishioners are allowed and
That's
encouraged to worship wherever they want to. Whether
don't quench the spirit.
That's it, Doc.
Yeah.
And they dance and they shout and all the things. And music has to be there to accompany that.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's so spontaneous, the music has to be spontaneous as well. And so that's where, I kind of learned, the idea of composition and improvisation, which, is a very important trait in jazz and gospel music and blues. And so that kind of led me down the line of I always loved classical music too. Particularly when I watch film, I love the sound of the orchestra, and that led me down the path of what is that sound? Who are the people that are doing that? Of course, I learned about John Williams, and who he studied with, Eric Korngold, and then who he studied with, Viennese. It's like this Viennese school of led me down to Beethoven, and so it's like this curiosity led me to learning about other composers who. At that time, I didn't know it, but they were using music of their people, Beethoven and Mozart. And so I was like, wait a minute, I grew up in, black church. It's so much culture, think about all these amazing artists that come out of the black church, Aretha Franklin and Pharrell Williams. And I wanted to, do the same thing. And so I do feel like as what a large part of what I do is sort of documenting the culture in this platform at the standard orchestral.
I'm curious as to what made you think you could marry gospel and the classics. Hold that thought. When we come forward, I want to hear that answer because there's nothing quite like gospel music. I mean, it is what it is. But to think that you can marry that with classical is something that is fascinating for me. We'll let Carlos explain that and a great deal more as we move toward talking about later in this hour. His Good News Mass piece, commissioned by the L.A. Field, that will be world premiered here in Southern California days from now. You're listening to Carlos Simon. I'm glad about it on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Testing.
We're live from Chick-fil-A.
This is Grant.
And this is Laura.
And a little thing we love about the Chick-fil-A Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich is that sweet bun.
And that chicken filet was perfectly crispy and soft at the same time.
And that Smokehouse Barbecue sauce, it's a lot of fun. And the brown sugar bacon definitely had a little bit more pizzazz. Also, the Mac, one of the all-time greats. Man, I'm getting hungry.
Order the Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich and our Coca-Cola on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Before the fire, Altadena was a real-life Wakanda. A thriving black oasis just 15 miles from downtown Los Angeles. 80% black residents were homeowners, building intergenerational wealth against the odds. It was a hub of black-owned businesses, churches, and cultural institutions. It stood as a symbol of black resilience and economic independence. Then, in a matter of hours, it was gone. The fire tore through homes, swallowed businesses, and left behind a painful void. But was it just an unstoppable act of nature, or was negligence involved? Did officials ignore early warning signs? Were the response efforts delayed or insufficient? What role, if any, did corporate or government failures play? Survivors are demanding answers. Don't miss our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall. The Eden Altadena Fire, 100 days and counting, on Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center, 1081 North Fair Oaks in Pasadena. Join Dominic DePrima, Nee Cordelai Corte, James Farr, Tavis Smiley, and a panel of survivors, community leaders, and experts as we commemorate Day 100 since the wildfires flared up, and we discuss where we go from here. It's KBLA's Eden Altadena Fire, 100 Days and Counting Town Hall, Wednesday, April 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Robinson Park Recreation Center in Pasadena. Light refreshments to follow. Admission is free, but sign-up is required at our KBLA1580.com website. The first 100 attendees will receive a complimentary air purifier. This is a community call to action, brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with Grammy-nominated composer, curator, and activist Carlos Simon. Pleased to have him in studio as he prepares, and we prepare here in Southern California for his LA Field Commission piece that is Good News Mass, along with, of course, the LA Philharmonic and Gustavo Dudamel. We were talking a moment ago about where you even got the notion of bringing your traditions. You made the point that others have brought their traditions to their music. But this notion of bringing your tradition, the best of black gospel and the black church, and marrying that with merging that with classical. I said to Carlos in the break, I love classical. Obviously, I'm raised in a black church, a Pentecostal church, so I clearly love the church. And yet, these things seem so disparate to me. Talk about cognitive dissonance. I'm not sure you can put those two things together, and yet you have. Tell me about how you even thought that you could do that.
Well, I will admit this. I'm still figuring it out myself.
Yeah,
you know,
I like that honesty.
It's an experiment.
Yeah.
But in graduate school, when I was learning the craft of composition, I was learning just that I was writing in the style of other composers like Mozart or Mahler, and just to kind of learn the style. And my teacher, he's like, "This is not you. This is not who you are." And he heard me play piano, and he's like, "Why aren't you putting that music into the music that you're writing?" And they lived separately for a long. The music I was writing for school, but the music that I was playing would live separately. And so I'll never forget. He's a Greek composer, and he's just like, "This is how I did it," and here are some other composers who do it as well. So he gave me sort of a roadmap of how to do this marrying, if you will. I'm going to use that word respectfully, because the last thing I wanted to do is make the music a caricature.
Yeah.
But give it respect, and treat it with the intention that I felt like I experienced, as in growing up in church, and how that translates on stage in concert hall. Because I think that's the other thing, making sure that what I put on the page is exactly what I intend. So that's another thing. That's another hurdle that I have to kind of learn how to do. Yeah. And that just takes some craft and study and learning how other composers did it.
So here's the question. Can the purist, you know what I'm talking about here, of course, can the purist appreciate that kind of merging?
Well, that's not for me to say.
Yeah.
My job is to document and just to do my job of putting the notes on the page, and whatever opinions other people have about us, and that's not my business.
Why has been and is, for that matter, is it important to you to weave all these things together? As I said, the gospel, the spoken word, the visual art. I mean, you're doing something uniquely different than anybody else in the world, in the field of composition. But all these pieces, tied and tethered together. Why is that important for you?
Well, I think art should reflect life. And I always subscribe to that notion that Nina Simone says. She says, you know, how can you be an artist and your music or your art not reflect what's happening in the world? You know, that's a paraphrase, but you know, you get the sense that art is really important to understanding our lives, you know, and from different vantage points, right? It's not just music; it's visual art, it's dance, and so many other art forms. So I'm just a part of the story, you know, and there are other composers who are doing the same thing. You know, I'm a part of a cohort of 7 black composers. We call ourselves the Blacknificent 7. And
I like that, Blacknificent.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and we're like around the country, doing our own things, but in the same things. You know, so I think, yes, I'm one person, one composer, but I feel like I'm part of a larger thing, larger movement, if you will.
How would you describe the journey? How would your 6 cohorts describe the journey of being a black composer these days in this space? I hear the long sigh.
Oh man,
and the pregnant pause.
Yeah. It's tough, and that's one of the reasons why we come together. You know, to kind of talk about just the disparities, but also to encourage each other to keep going, and to keep moving and striving and doing our best. But you know, it's a world that I'll say that isn't necessarily meant for us. You know, particularly black composers. We are competing with Beethoven and Mozart, and you know, those composers are excellent. I love their work, and I study their work. At the same time, it's just what you're dealing with, all the things that are the context of those pieces and what they mean in our society, which is, you know, wrapped around elitism, which is wrapped around socioeconomic gaps and wealth disparities and racism. And, you know, and so that the culture around the music, I believe it's kind of it's hard for us to kind of, I would say, for me, to grapple with those things, particularly in the culture, in the context in which, you know, the music is created.
You used the word a moment ago that jumped out at me, Carlos, and the word was compete, and I know what you meant by that. No one can really compete with Beethoven. In terms of one-upping Beethoven, that's kind of hard to do. He may very well be. I think he is the greatest composer that ever lived. And yet, when you're in this in the space that you are, the field that you are in classical music, my view has always been that, again, those purists, you know, aren't always so open to new things, to new stuff. And I often wonder how, again, you navigate a particular space. You're not in the R&B space. You're not in the rap space. We want new. You know, we love the old. We love the old school, but we want new, and we celebrate the new. There's something about the classical space, but they want to hear Brahms, they want to hear Beethoven, they want to hear Mahler, they want to hear yada yada yada. So I'm using compete in a different way. How do you compete with that? Does that make sense as a question?
I understand that now. You know, I like to think of the music in context in which it was created. You know, Verdi, for instance, was incredibly popular at the time. You know, everybody knew him. He was a common composer. Everybody knew who he was, and they knew his music too. And so I think, and he wrote music that appealed to the masses, and it was massively accessible to folks. And I think I'd like to take that same model, you know, and because, you know, typically, how often do you go to orchestra concerts and you're just like, whoa, what's going on here? Why are we not clapping with you?
let me jump in right quick. I'll tell you a funny story. I've told this before, probably on this show. I remember the very, very, very first time I went to a classical musical performance. And I was actually with my friend Cornel West.
Oh, yeah.
And my friend David Kim, who was a student of Dr. West. So we're sitting there at my very first classical music concert, and they come to this pause, right? And I was so enthralled by it, I just started.
Yeah.
And everybody in the place just stopped and listened to me. I was terribly embarrassed. But because it's my first concert, I'm so used to going to R&B shows and certainly being in the black church. When I hear something I like, I give it up.
That's it.
I did that in that moment, and I realized, no, you don't. That's not how we do that. We're not at the end of this movement yet, right? And so you don't do that. So I when you said the clapping thing, it sort of got my attention. Anyway, go ahead. I just want to tell you. I got burned that way.
It's a cultural. I think we all. But that's the thing, though, right? You want to feel safe. You want to feel like you belong.
Yeah.
And in our culture, that's what we do. We respond in the moment when we hear something.
That's right.
We want to respond to that, whether it's clapping, when it's particularly black folks, like, oh, amen.
That's right.
So whenever I get a chance to speak in front of the audience before the piece is played, I say, listen, if you feel so inclined to clap or respond however you want to, I don't necessarily subscribe to those notions of like you pause, don't clap in between movements or whatever. It's a very important thing that I feel like people should be able to feel safe in these halls and being able to respond, whether it's during the piece or even how they look. Dress up. You have to dress up, in a tie. Like if it's I think that's the idea of accessibility. And when it comes down to music too, me writing music that I feel. I always often write music that's from my mom or my parents who didn't go to conservatory or didn't understand to a music school, which I do feel like you need to do oftentimes with when you listen to Beethoven and Mozart, you understand it in context. But I feel like I want to write music that people can listen to it and grab something and be able to take it with them. And wherever they go, and not just in the hall, but also when they leave the space, what can they take with them? And just whether it's, wow, I thought about my grandmother who used to play classical music, and, she just died 2 weeks ago. I think the best compliment I've ever got in my life after a performance was, I don't typically like new music. This person walked up to me, but I really liked your piece, young man, And she went on to talk about how, her grandmother used to play, Brahms or like on Saturday mornings. And she would bake apple pie. And when she heard my piece, she was like, oh, it reminded me of her.
Memories,
Yeah, and she died 2 weeks ago. So I can't plan for those things. How can you do that? It's like, so it's wonderful to have that.
Condolences on that, first of all. But when you come out of a Pentecostal tradition doing what you do, you mentioned your parents earlier, your family earlier, and all that lineage of preachers. Does your family get you? Do they get you?
Oh man, they're so proud of me.
Yeah.
I think my mom is watching now.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's okay. I don't think they get everything, and that's fine.
Right.
I'm just appreciative for support. That's important because actually they're coming to the show this week.
Right.
And my parents, they try to make everything that I do.
Yeah.
My mom was just in Boston with me a few weeks ago.
Right.
I was working with the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and she came and was like, "Wow, this is amazing." So, again, that doesn't matter whether they get everything.
I could ask this question of any number of my friends. I'm thinking of, for example, Wynton Marsalis. He and I've had this conversation 1,000 times. So he and you are in the same box in that you are in a profession, you're in a space, you're doing the kind of music. When you look out every night into the audience, you don't see a whole lot of us. Again, Wynton and I have had that conversation many times. He processes that one way. But I ain't talking to Wynton right now. I'm talking to Carlos Simon. And I ain't talking about jazz. I'm talking about classical.
Right.
How do you process being in a space and doing the kind of work that is appreciated by the folk who hear it, but the folk who hear it most often don't look like you and me?
That's a tough question. And I'm still dealing with that.
Yeah.
As someone who grew up around black folks, all my life, and I've had to kind of adjust and try to, not necessarily mold to anything, but like just to make sure that I'm being honest through the music that I'm writing. But I'm gonna say it's pretty tough. It's really tough, because then it's the question is like, who am I creating this music for? But I try to stay to my roots, and I came from Atlanta yesterday, and I wanted to be in my father's church yesterday on Sunday, Palm Sunday, especially gearing up for Easter and all this stuff like that. So I make it a point to always go back home to kind of ground myself.
Did you play yesterday?
I did play.
You played?
I did play.
Wow.
Yeah, I got a video.
What instrument?
Hammond organ.
Hammond organ, there. You played that B3 yesterday.
Yes, sir. Yes,
All
sir.
right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We pulled it out.
I love a B3.
Yeah, yeah.
How was the service? You had a good time?
Oh yeah, I'll show you a clip during the break.
Yeah,
that.
I want to see that. I do want to see that.
Yeah.
You mentioned a moment ago you wrestle with this question of who I'm making this music for.
Mm-hmm.
You look out in the audience when you're in the classical realm and you don't see a whole lot of us. So who are you making music for, Carlos Simon?
Well, to be honest with them, I think on a very subconscious level, I'm making it for my parents and the people who helped me to get where I am today.
Yeah.
Namely my grandmother, who really pushed me when she learned that I wanted to play piano. She got, particularly when I wanted to learn how to play formal, like classical, because I grew up playing by ear. But when I started taking lessons, she made it a point to go out and get some CDs of Beethoven piano sonatas and, try to expose me to that world as much as possible. So I think, in a nutshell, I feel like I'm writing to, the folks, my team, my tribe, and trying to get to impress them, So whatever else happens, But they got me where I am today.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. You know, I thought you were gonna say.
What?
For myself. That's what most artists will tell you, right? I've interviewed everybody, and what most of them will tell you, I write music for myself. I write, I write what comes to me, and I hope that other people will enjoy it when they hear it. But I'm writing for myself.
Yeah, it's a little bit of selfishness in there, but that's there's a quote that I like to think of: the faucet has to get wet before anything else gets wet.
Say that again.
The faucet, has to get wet before everything else gets wet.
That's right. No, I like that quote. I like that. Our guest in the studio right now is Carlos Simon, Grammy-nominated composer, curator, activist. They are about to world premiere his piece, Good News Mass, which was commissioned by the LA Phil. That's a big deal. With an orchestra like the LA Phil, conducted by Gustavo Dudamel, come to you, black man, and say, we want you to do a piece for us and world premiere it with us. That's, as we say down south, high cotton.
That's high cotton.
You mentioned Atlanta. That's high cotton, man. So we'll talk about Good News Mass with the LA Phil when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Yeah.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Stocks surged on Wall Street after President Trump's surprise temporary tariff exemptions on smartphones and semiconductors jumped about 400 points, with the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. Space engineer Aisha Bo and TV personality Gayle King returned from a Blue Origin flight. The event was historic as the last all-female crew involved a solo Russian cosmonaut in 1963. Suspected U.S. airstrikes in Yemen killed at least 6 dozens. The Pentagon hasn't confirmed, but the military has targeted Houthi rebels for their attacks on Red Sea. Zendaya is set to play legendary singer, the late Ronnie Spector, in her biopic, Be My Baby, How I Survived a Mascara, Miniskirts, and Madness. The project will be directed by black filmmaker Barry Jenkins. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Southern California Edison reminds you that downed wires are dangerous. Never approach or touch a downed wire or anything in contact with it. Stay away and call 911. Learn more at sce.com/stay safe.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Major props to the Clippers. They had to win their final 2 regular season games on the road, and they got it done. The Clippers beat Golden State 124-119 in overtime Sunday to clinch the 5th seed in the Western Conference playoffs. The Clippers will play Denver in the first round. Game 1 in the best-of-7 series is Saturday at Denver. James Harden led the Clippers with 39 points and 10 assists, 33 points for Kawhi Leonard in 47 minutes. Folks, let me say this. If Kawhi Leonard can avoid any issues with his right knee, the Clippers are going to make some serious noise in the playoffs. Sunday's win was the Clippers' 8th in a row. They are 18-3 since March 5th. The Clippers are playing like they're ready for the postseason. The Lakers secured the number 3 seed in the Western Conference. Their first-round opponent is Minnesota. Game 1 of their best-of-7 series is Saturday at Crypto.com. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationship will never be the same. Or is
You're black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
At Exquisite Family Mortuary, we know how overwhelming it can be planning a meaningful farewell for your loved one. Secure your peace of mind by calling Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. From traditional funeral services to memorials to direct cremation, pre-needs, and more. Call Charlotte White at Exquisite Family Mortuary for Southern hospitality in Southern California. That's Charlotte White at 323-577.
It is what it is.
No. This is an important week. Yeah. We start rehearsals tomorrow,
right?
And so I'll go in and and sort of make small revisions,
right.
As I hear the word, because I haven't heard it. Yeah. It's just like on paper, and it's like, okay, so this is what it sounds like, huh?
I call that a tightrope. That's a tightrope.
Yeah,
that's a high wire
yeah.
when you actually haven't heard it and you don't know.
Well, I mean, to some extent, I do know what it will be like, but there may be little small things that I'm going to tweak. So I'll say the piece, when I write a piece of music, it doesn't really mature and become like the piece, the definitive work, until maybe the second or third performance.
That's fair enough.
But I'm always tweaking, depending on the hall, because the piece may sound differently in one space to another. Right. So I may say, okay, violins, why don't you come down the dynamic here, because y'all are kind of loud. I can't hear the brass, or just little small things.
LA Philharmonic and Carlos Simon. More with him when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Yeah.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. After producing an award-winning climate justice campaign in 2024, KBLA Talk 1580 has gone all in on its 2025 Climate Justice plus Black Health Initiative. April is Minority Health Month, and Urban Family Focus, in partnership with Providence Health Systems, presents The Heart of the Matter. Providence doctors and health equity officers will participate in informative and life-changing conversations on hypertension, health equity, behavioral health, and don't miss the on Focus every Saturday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Sponsored by Providence, Southern California's largest and most comprehensive health care network. We got a lot to talk about on KBLA 1580. Download the KBLA 1580 or log in to KBLA1580.com. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Okay with that.
You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed a composer, activist, getting ready for this Thursday and Friday's World of Good News Commission. Carlos Simon will bring us about they see or how you use your music for social justice.
Mm-hmm. Grew up around black people all my life, and so that is seeing of course I just a part of who I am. Mm-hmm. Also, like this, realizing the history of everything that black folk country, particularly that sort of us as Morehouse men, you know. Mm-hmm. We should use our platforms, whatever it is, to help others for social change. Yeah. And that I subscribe to in my music. What am I doing to help others, and to kind of show a different side and to help, particularly like, mm-hmm. and whether it be like through history or whether it be, the commemoration or sort of like understanding the death of George Floyd, which I've done, with the Minnesota Orchestra. They mm-hmm. commissioned me to write a piece to commemorate, the death, if you will, and the murder of George Floyd, which is one of the hardest pieces I've ever had to write. Yeah. But a part of that was to show, yes, it was a horrible thing happened, but this has been happening, yeah. and it has continued to happen. But what can we do to make sure that continuing this throughout history, and what needs to happen, for particularly for Black folks, and we don't have a conversation about reparations, but that is a thing, but the whole idea of that work and the pieces like it is to show that we're all in this together, and that we need to use our platforms for social change, and that's just no different. You mentioned Morehouse, of course, and my mind immediately went to Dr. King. Yeah. And Benjamin Elijah Mays. Yeah. We talked about Dr. King in our last hour. There's a new book out about him. It's called King of the North, and it's a book we just, again, discussed with prior to your coming on about King and his movement outside of the South. His campaign for justice and peace and equity and equality throughout the country. So we had a great conversation with Gene Theodore last hour, and you mentioned Morehouse, and my mind went to Benjamin E. He's talking about Morehouse men and all the rest of us, for that matter, using the gifts we have. What's the quote? I have only but a minute, only 60 seconds in it, forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it, suffer if I lose it, if I abuse it, just. But eternity in it. Yes, sir. That's Benny Mays. Our remaining moments for Carlos, we come forward on time.
For all the free folk, this is Smiley.
I feel free. If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging, connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National knows future into a reality, and are here for you. We have a wide range of options, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
The revolution will not be televised.
Killer Mike, also known as Michael Render, and I'm encouraging you to listen to More Not Less of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Senator Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life is pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Time is up. The IRS is in full collection mode for 2024, issuing liens, levies, and garnishments to anyone who has a past tax debt or unfiled tax returns. Don't wait till it's too late. Bank accounts are at risk. Call now and stop the collection process today. If you're living check to check, no matter how much you're making, you still may qualify for the Fresh Start programs offered by the IRS to reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. It's just a 5-minute call to get your option. It's free. If you owe back tax, years of unfiled tax returns, under audit, have a wage or bank levy, or finally just want to sleep better, business or tax rated by the Better Business Bureau, and tough. This veteran-owned company has to fight you the IRS. Don't call their hotline number now, 800-246-1923. That's 800-246-1923. Find out if you qualify today. Call 800-246-1923 or go to republictaxrelief.com.
He's a paradigm pioneer and the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation. To Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
Tavis Smiley and Carlos Simon, once again, if you are fortunate to be in Southern California or come into Southern California, and if you are lucky enough to get the world premiere of this orchestral composition called Good News Mass, Thursday and Friday at here in L.A., you can see, again, the world premiere of Good News Mass with the L.A. Phil and the maestro, Gustavo Dudamel. Anxious to see what Carlos Simon fun with this composition called Good News Mass. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves because you got to do Thursday and Friday first, but I know there's other stuff on your docket. Little Birdie told me that you got an opera piece coming with the Met, and we said earlier, high cotton. I don't know what you call that, but an opera at the Met, that's a big deal, man.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Opera's it's a long haul. You know, I mean, this project is taking some Good News Mass, but I've been working on this opera for a long time. And the premiere, we have a soft premiere in 2026, and then final work would be in 2028. So it's a long haul. It's a long haul, but I'm very proud of the work as it stands. You know, right now. So. Yeah, but we'll get through this week and we'll start working on it.
Yeah, you got first you got to do. But how does that? I guess when you're in that lane, you get used to it. I mean, I come in here every day and my stuff is immediate. You know, when I get off the air today, my team will, you know, later hours from now, they'll give me all the research for tomorrow's show. I'll be up all night, not all night, but I'll be up late reading and getting ready for tomorrow's show. But 3 hours later, it's done. It's pretty immediate for me. Your stuff is like long form. It takes a while. I guess at some point you get used to that.
Yeah, and it's fun though. It's fun to see the piece grow and develop. You know, also weird says this. You know, I want so it kind of have to flow with the work, and that's exciting to me. Just to always be in the flow. And to allow the piece to grow into something that I would never, and even after and see how it takes different shapes. You know, I've had pieces to be choreographed by dancers. I would have imagined this work being choreographed, or you know, being in a different. So, my life, I just love just being in the flow. You know, of life. You know,
I love it. Benny Mays, et cetera. It seems to me that a guy who went to Morehouse ought to consider doing something about MLK.
Well, that's I love that from your lips to God's ears.
I'm just throwing it out there, man. Who better than you?
Well, I'd love to do. I would love to do an opera about